All right, all right, all right. You're listening to the We're Talking Football podcast. I'm Weston. With me, as always, my right-hand man, Lou. Lou, really crazy to think that this time last year, we were just beginning our work here at the We're Talking Football podcast. So congratulations to you on our 1-year anniversary.
I know. Thank you so much, Weston. I had the under. I thought like 3.5 months. I did not think we'd be go a full year. From our first show here. So it's a testament to our dedication for all the fans that we have out there. So we're just pouring our love, sweat, and tears, into this show for you guys.
So I'm going to jog your memory a little bit more.
Please.
I did some digging into the archives, and I remember you specifically joking on our second ever show that the over under was half a show, because you thought that you were like, I might have just been a deer in headlights and walked out on you mid show. So I'm glad to say we've crushed the the over on that. I think we're on episode 39 or 40 to be a little, I think it's 40 to be more exact. So, but it's been a lot of fun. I've certainly enjoyed the time with you for sure. But here we are a year later covering the exact same topic we began with, Senior Bowl. I distinctly remember in the opening of our first show, you mentioning that the Super Bowl was coming and me telling you that I didn't care about the Super Bowl, that I only wanted to talk about the Senior Bowl at that point in time. And I still feel that way. This time, it's a little bit more out of spite because I was hoping my team would be playing in this particular Super Bowl. But nonetheless, we are certainly not. But we will, of course, as responsible adults and responsible podcasters, kind of foreshadow Super Bowl tomorrow, but that's in short order. The bulk of what I want to spend some time on today and focus in on is the week of practices for the Senior Bowl, certainly the game itself, which was played this past Saturday. So let's proceed how it all began 1 year ago.
Hold on one second before we do so. If the listeners can't tell by now, I am extremely consistent. So I made the same ass corny joke 12 months ago as I just did on this show. So if you can't tell by now, I am consistent. I recycle my jokes. So you're probably catching a theme by now.
Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And there's a lot to be said for consistency. So, Lou, before we jump in, I have a little bit of a curveball for you. It's a trivia question, believe it or not. One that, of all people, my mother-in-law sent my way as she is trying to pick up her knowledge around the NFL. So I'll ask the question the same way it was asked to me. Full disclosure, got this correct, but I had to sit on it for a second. So in regards to the NFL, the term octopus, what does it refer to? Not who, but what essentially accomplishment does it refer to in the NFL?
Too easy.
Yeah?
Easy. Let me tell you why. Because this was a bet. You can bet on will there be an octopus? Okay, so there is that betting aspect. So no, people, it's not. There's going to be an octopus on the field.
It's not hockey where they throw octopuses on the rink.
So correct me if I'm wrong. If it's an individual who scores a touchdown and a 2-point conversion.
Correct. So consecutively. So
yes,
not just like a touchdown and a 2-point conversion later, but like on the same possession, essentially. The touchdown. Dude, I had not heard that term. Now, you know me, I'm not the biggest gambler outside of fantasy. So it's not necessarily a prop bet that I'm looking for.
How impressed are you by me right
Quite
now?
impressed. Quite impressed. The only reason why I remember it is I remember it from a trivia that was played on the radio. Like, dude, like honestly, so long ago on like 101.5 here in New Jersey. I just remember randomly hearing it. And lo and behold, my mother-in-law, when she presented it to me, she told me that she heard it on a Christian station on the radio as a trivia question, which I felt was an odd topic that a Christian radio station would be covering the NFL. I mean, I think they're looking for the good old boys.
Yeah, exactly.
So in any case, kudos, bravo. I was hoping it didn't stump you because I didn't want to put you on the spot like that. So, but very well done.
Thank you.
That is the octopus in the NFL.
All
All right.
right.
So let's talk about the Senior Bowl a little bit here. What I'd love to do, and bear with me here, is I'd love to find I want you to kind of quickly rattle off some people that you were most interested in watching going into the week and to the game. Give me like a second or two as to why they interest you. Then I want to do this. Then I want to go into like who stood out in the game, regardless of somebody that you wanted to see or not. You know, maybe it's a player or two that really stood out from the game, not necessarily just a week of practices. It could be a combination of both. And then I want to come back to the players that we were interested in seeing and maybe kind of recap, you know, their process, their progress, and how they performed. You up for that?
Yeah. I'll pick it up. Yeah.
All right.
I'm a quick learner here.
You're a quick study. All right. I love it. So put in some context. I'll give you what I'm looking for here, right? So the first player that I was most interested in watching was actually Christian Watson, the wide receiver from North Dakota State University. I think everybody in the NFL this year was mesmerized and intrigued by the pairing of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, right? Just having that chemistry from their days in college. And this is an option specifically for me and my team for maybe Trey Lance to reunite with a former stud wide receiver, LB in FCS football. I'm not putting Christian Watson on the same pedestal as I would put Jamar Chase by any means, but having that level of familiarity you don't see it often, and it seems to bode well. The other things you got to like about him, this guy's a 6'5" receiver, right? 210 plus pounds, had high production, big play ability in college. Like I think he was averaging like 18, almost 19 yards a catch in a run first offense, right? So, and doing it a multitude of ways. So that's like the quick spiel I'm looking for in terms of like a player that you were most interested in watching this past weekend. So let's go like one for one. So I'm starting with Christian Watson. Who was somebody that was standing out to you?
Trevor Penning, the offensive. So sorry, guys. You guys are going to probably the more favorable topics to listen to or players to listen to is going to come out of Weston's mouth. I'm going to stick with the Mog Hollies, the big guys, because that's that's who I roll with. I roll with those heavy hitters there. So I'm going to say Trevor Penning was a guy that I was definitely interested in because he was getting a lot of buzz. First round draft pick, University of Northern Iowa, if I'm not mistaken. Prototypical size, I think he's like 6'5", almost like 330. And the whole thing about him is he's big, he's nasty, he's physical. He reminds you of like a John Runyon type of player. And this is why I was interested because I feel like everything's more finesse now. The outside zone, you want him to be more athletic. You're not looking for the blow him off the football type of offensive lineman. So he was more of like a throwback to like your 90s. Like, I'm going to punch you in the mouth for 60 plus minutes and then let's see what you can do about it. And I wanted to see how he did against higher competition, and he went up against a couple of players from Ohio State. I think Evans from Ohio State, the edge rusher, and he held his own. And he was as advertised. Go ahead. I
was going to say, save how he did. We're going to come back to how he did.
Okay.
I want to know why you were interested in him in the first place, right?
Because you hear about like all the hey, this guy is nasty, plays through the whistle type stuff. I wanted to know, like, all right, he's playing through the whistle to lesser competition. Let's see how he does against some big boys type stuff.
Perfect.
So that's why I was interested in watching him play.
All right, cool. So we'll come back in a little bit as to like how he did against some of those people he matched up to, and we'll kind of recap their performance. But I am going to justify your approach here, Lou, because to me, not just this draft, so underclassmen as well, but this Senior Bowl, I do think some of the better players that teams have their eyes on play in the trenches. Like there's not superstar skill people in this draft like there was definitely in the last draft, right? Like, I mean, what'd you have? 5 quarterbacks in the top 15, right? Like you're not going to see that this time, right? You had 2 wide receivers in the top 10. You're not going to see that.
Listen, I agree with you 100%. It's so funny. In my notes here, I feel like this draft class is a tad unimpressive. It's more of a meat and potatoes draft, like I said in our last show. For the most importantly, is because it's just the trenches. It's just going to be your defensive ends, your defensive tackles, your offensive lineman type stuff. There are no top quarterbacks, like you say. They're all interchangeable, meaning like anyone could be selected first. It's basically the eye of the beholder who they deem that's going to fit in their offense better. The all offensive line prospects, they are promising, but they're extremely raw too. And there's no consensus of top overall picks. So that's why if there's not a consensus of top overall picks, meaning everyone's interchangeable, I just feel like that means the draft isn't as star-studded as it was perhaps in the last couple of years.
Yeah. There's just no slogans this year like tank for Tua or tank for Bosa or tank for the what you have heard in the past of like the value behind having the number one pick. You can look at 10 different mock drafts and all 10 of them have 3 or 4 players that they're interchanging at that number one pick, which like
some of them play the same positions and like
it's just who you favor. Yep.
So
all right, cool. I'm gonna support your philosophy here. So I don't have him listed as number 2 on my list, but somebody that I was very interested in looking at was Nick Zakelj from Fordham, offensive lineman, played left tackle at Fordham. Now here's the spoiler alert. If you attended Fordham University, my alma mater, I'm automatically interested. I just need to know. I need to see what's it about. Yes, it's FCS football in the Patriot League nonetheless, right? So not necessarily a team that's competing for a national championship in the FCS, but he does have some things that you're interested in. To attend the Patriot League, it does require some intelligence. In terms of getting that money in those scholarships, because they're afforded so very few compared to FBS schools. He's 6'5", he's 325. He's got long arms, right? He's above that 33-inch like arm length. So like, does he suit well in tackle? He was a team captain as a 5th-year senior. But again, my intrigue around him is solely he's a Fordham grad, and there are very few of them that get invited to the Senior Bowl or even entertained as draftable in an NFL draft. So that was my interest.
So let me make sure we're not talking about performance then right now, correct?
Not right now. No, just the why. The why. That's all I want to know is the why.
Okay. I have for my next person, it would be Kobe Bryant. Not probably the one that you're familiar with. It's more the
rest in peace, Mamba.
Exactly. It's the cornerback out of Cincinnati. And the reason why is I was looking for, we already said there's going to be it's flooded this draft with defensive linemen and offensive linemen. I wanted to see what outside players besides that. You don't hear really too much buzz about the linebackers. Kobe Bryant, who doesn't get as much discussion as his counterpart, Sauce Gardner, who's going to be the first cornerback from that tandem of Cincinnati to be drafted. So I wanted to see how he was going to play because he was, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, a Jim Thorpe winner.
Yes, he was.
Tell the audience what when you're a Jim Thorpe winner, you're the best defensive back in the nation. Yep. So I was interested in pretty much why is this guy getting overshadowed? Because he has also fantastic measurables too.
Yeah. So number 2 on my list was Kobe Bryant for everything.
Did I shock you there?
You did tremendously. And I'm regretting going with my offensive lineman to just try to impress you real fast. But everything you just said, right? Played opposite of Sauce. Sauce, most people will say, is a top 10 pick. They probably have Kobe, I don't know, some 4th, 5th round, right? Like much later, but yet this guy was the Jim Thorpe winner. So I wanted to see what the buzz was all about. So to me, to win the Jim Thorpe Award, like you got to hold your own. And he was definitive. I mean, when you see some of the statistics around Sauce Gardner, like how little he was targeted, it's like tells me that this guy Kobe Bryant was getting a ton of targets his way. Because the people just shied away from Sauce, who is like the definition, in my opinion, the definition of lockdown. I think he's the top corner in the draft, even over Stingley out of LSU. I just like that. I mean, you get the nod when you got a nickname like Sauce. Like that's just that just speaks volume. So I too have Kobe. So I'll let you get into how many did you really look at? I mean, I had 9 guys. I'm not going to rattle off all 9 because I want to be conscious of time here. So I might rattle off like 2 or 3 more.
You go one more. All
right, I'll go one more. I'm going to say 2 names, and then we're never going to speak about them again. So I was very interested in to see Hassan Haskins, the running back from Michigan, and Jahan Dotson, the wide receiver for Penn State. Both pulled out. So when I was making this list, they had not pulled out yet.
Hold on. I think that was a prime area for a joke there. That's what she said.
That's what she said.
That's what she said. All right, go ahead. So they both pulled out.
They both pulled out of the Senior
Okay.
Bowl.
Okay.
So I'm rattling them both off because we're never going to talk about them again here. They did not play. So it is what it is. Moving on. Who else you got?
All right, so I'm going back to my heritage of offensive lineman. Darian Canard, offensive tackle from Kentucky. This guy is a massive, massive human being. True power right tackle. Those are guys you want to run behind because they can blow people off the ball. Came in about 15, 20 pounds lighter because you have Icky from and also the Alabama offensive lineman. Both those are your 1 and 2 offensive linemen in the draft. There's no clear-cut answer for the third offensive lineman, so I was looking for a third offensive tackle. Who's going to be that OT3? And Kennard has good tape, and I wanted to see how he's going to look going up against because there was a lot of good pass rushers and speed rushers in this Senior Bowl. So I wanted to see how he's going to perform against them. And it looked promising at first, because he came in, 15, 20 pounds lighter because he was a hefty boy. He was like 345. So it showed that he was dedicated to lose that weight to get in better conditioning and better shape. And he's also been working with Duke. What's his name? Merriweather, I think Merriweather or Manyweather, whatever his name is. He's like an offensive line guru. So he's like doing that academy as well. So I wanted to see how he was going to show up this past weekend.
Perfect. I'm looking. The other person I was interested in this week was Arnold Bikati. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Just a defensive lineman from Penn State. They've had some interesting defensive prospects over the years. He's got a ton of good measurables. 6'3", 256. Had 9.5 sacks on the season. I wanted to know, is he more of Jason Owe? I forgot what Jason changed his name to. Or is he more Shaka Tony, right? From their draft class last year, kind of that tweener. And you know how much we saw Owe stock rise after like the combine and pro days when he was doing his workout. So was hoping to see if he'd make his stock rise this week, and I'll talk a little bit later about what he did. So give me like 1 or 2 more because I wanna jump into the game a little bit.
I think let's just jump into the game because I want to save some of pretty much some of these players for when discussing the game. Then
all right, I'm gonna throw you one more. Jalen Tolbert, wide receiver, South Alabama, 6'3", 190. Just 2 consecutive years of high production, albeit at a lower level of Division I football. Like over the last 2 years, dude, 146 catches, almost 2,600 yards. 16 touchdowns, averaging 17.5 yards a catch. A lot to like about his game, and I wanted to see how it translated against some stiffer competition. So, and of course,
real quick, for me to throw him, like mine was another offensive lineman, and the reason why he was on my list was because Daniel Jeremiah highlighted him, the kid from Austria, Ryman. I wanted to see how he's going to perform too, because I feel like in recent Daniel Jeremiah is like top 50. He was like up there, and when Dan Jeremiah says a player's up there, you got to pay attention. He's not just one of those media people that don't know what he's doing. He was the one of the few that came out early and said Slater was better than Penny Sewell, and people thought he was crazy when he said that. So like he knows his stuff, especially offensive lineman. So the kid from I think Central Michigan caught my eye.
No, makes sense. I think you and I and everybody else too was obviously intrigued just to see how the quarterbacks fared because there is no consensus, and they're all over the board in terms of like when people project to be them to be drafted and who's gonna go first. And spoiler alert, none of them impressed me at all. No. But nonetheless, like because these are the big names and they're playing in the Senior Bowl, right? Like plus or minus one other. So whether it was Malik Willis, Sam Howell, Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ritter, I'll give Kenny Pickett the nod just because he's a New Jersey boy from Ocean Township High School, Monmouth County. So we like that about him. But let's jump into the game. Before I ask you who stood out to you most, again, just quick why, right? Just quick why. We're not going to spend time here. I want to get back to like how the players that we were intrigued by, how they fared. But when I think of the Senior Bowl, these games are it's tough to judge on the game, right? Because there's just like, look, you can't every quarter is treated like a half, right? You can't send people in motion. It has to be equal balance alignments on both sides of the ball. So there's no trickery, there's no anything like that. And they're coming together for like a week. And in my opinion, the defenses usually shine more than the offenses because there's less to react to. They can just use their athleticism. And it's kind of what I saw in this game anyway. But I will give you the nod. Who stood out in this game? Whether it was one of your players or somebody that wasn't your player, who stood out?
All right, so I'm gonna say a player because I really feel like you're gonna say him, so I want to kind of beat you to the punch. So once again, we're gonna go down memory lane, and if you remember during our first time we did this, I was obsessed with players whose names I could not pronounce. Osi Udugazawa was a big player that I was high on last year in the Senior Bowl, but so let's do another yearly tradition, annual tradition. Ready? Boye Mafe, edge from Minnesota. He had to be on your list because this guy was
number one to be exact.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, he was, in my opinion, he was the second best player that played this past weekend. Let me tell you why. First of all, he's a stand-up rusher, and literally they called him like 3 or 4 days before he got to the Senior Bowl, and we're like, "Hey, we kind of want you to put your hand in the dirt." And he's like, "Okay, I've never really done that before, but I'll mess around and do that." So not only did he really not practice lining up the way they wanted to do, like in his career, but he was really effective. He was named the national squad's player of the game. He logged a pair of sacks, a tackle for a loss, and a forced fumble. Like I said, he's a stand-up rusher, but he was living in the backfield, pressuring quarterbacks all day. He displayed a lot of moves. He was not just a speed edge rusher. Yeah, he beat the offensive tackles off the ball pretty handily. He was really good at that. But he had a fantastic inside move to beat another offensive tackle, his inside shoulder. So he faked outside, jab step, and went inside and applied pressure that way. And I loved his hand usage on another rush. It was like a 2-hand chop or swat, and he then bent right underneath the offensive tackle. He was constantly causing problems for the American squad all game long. And the fact that he did that, not being his comfortable self standing up, good for him. So he really impressed me. Like I said, second best player on the field this past weekend.
Yeah, easily. And to everything that you just said, right, doing it kind of out of his natural position, kind of quote unquote, and what he's comfortable with, but he was doing it all week at practice too. Mm-hmm. So it's no surprise that it showed up in the game. It's not just like it flashed in the game, and the guy's doing it with half the reps, right? Like you're splitting time, you're splitting halves, you're splitting all that like in an all-star game when all's said and done, going up against good competition on the tackle. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, he was constantly lined up over the left tackle. Like he was on the right side of the defensive line. He was number one on my list.
He just showed a multitude of ways that he would win. Speed, inside move, hand movements. I just was really impressed with how he wasn't as raw as advertised.
Yeah, no, totally agree. If he was 1A, to me, 1B for all other for things other than just like accolades and like some sexy statistics from it's defensive tackle Travis Jones from UConn. I know the hype was about him going in, but like, do these guys live up to the hype? Lou, he just ate people alive on that defensive line, like just on that offensive line. Like he just destroyed them, was just constantly in the backfield, looked head and shoulders from a pure skill standpoint above all of his competition. And like a big man should not be able to get low as he does and to play with leverage as well as he does.
He's 6'4", and that's exactly he's one of my guys, so I feel like you were kind of trying to get back to me with this. This is fine, but you're right. He's 6'4", and I have in my notes right here, constantly walking interior offensive linemen back into the laps of the quarterbacks because of his leverage. He's always underneath their pads, always. So that's a fantastic way he exploded on getting off the ball.
And it just shouldn't be. Like physics should say that can't.
He's going to want to stand up more, yeah.
Yeah. But like to me, dude, this guy is going to be a real problem for offensive lines day one. Like he is a day one starter when he gets drafted. And I don't care where he gets drafted. Like his size, his strength, his ability, he's going to be a real issue on the interior of somebody's defensive line, like a real problem.
He is getting that like last year's like Quinn Minor's like ascension type thing.
Should.
He was getting talking to like maybe fifth round, fourth round type area. Now he's probably after this weekend. I'm going to say he's probably
He's a day two guy now. He's a day
Yeah,
two guy.
he's a day. Yeah, he's definitely a day two guy. I agree with you.
He's going to start immediately. Like, good news for him is he plays a position that just go do what you do and you'll be okay, right?
You
Like
make that
if
sound so simple, Weston. Oh, your cornerbacks are the most intelligent, players.
you just got to cater to egos out on the islands.
You
No
make it
ego here.
sound
Just
like
go beat the shit out of the dude in front of you and he'll do it quite fine, I promise.
That's like I do.
Yeah, I mean, is that not? If you looked up defensive tackle outside of Aaron Donald, this is what you're asked to do.
A little more finesse to these big men.
He just has the skill set. You got another player that stood out, or you?
Yeah, real quick. So I guarantee you probably thought I was referencing Travis Jones as the best player, but no, he wasn't the best player for me in this past weekend. For me, it was Zion Johnson, interior offensive lineman at Boston College. Naturally a guard coming out of college. They asked him to play center this past weekend because they wanted to see how much versatility he can display. And you just watching him, he was like the best. You just tell he's the best player on the field. He did a really good job paving the way for Arizona State's Rachaad White. The way he just blew off the ball, moved people off the ball, climbed to the second level to pick off linebackers, and he went up against some good talent. He single-handedly was mauling defensive tackle from Arkansas, John Ridgeway, who he's a handful himself. He's a stout, strong guy, John Ridgeway, and Zion Johnson was able to outclass him. And oh yeah, by the way, he did it in his secondary position. So he's a natural guard, and he did it as a center. And that's harder, I think, going from guard to center. You have to worry about snapping the ball, cadences, offensive line shifts, and stuff like that. So Zion Johnson he looked like a man playing amongst the little boys.
Yeah, he definitely had a solid game. I have two other guys that I had. Both of them are running backs. It's more just like Dameon Pierce, right? Like I just think he boosted his value. He was like very underutilized in Florida when I think back on his production, but he showed that he can catch passes out of the backfield. And the most important thing that he did to get onto the field in the NFL is throughout the week, he did very well in pass protection. In the pass protection drills, he held up, he was stout, knew his responsibility. That will make you money out of these all-star games when it comes to the NFL, because time and time again in a passing league, if you can't keep your quarterback upright, you don't find the field, man. If you're a liability, and I think he put a foot forward there outside of just his skill set. And again, more in practice when it's designed, versus out of the schematics in an actual game. But that would be another player for me. So, all right, looking at the clock, I know we're kind of rushing through today, and I do apologize, but Lou's got a planned evening out. My wife and I are heading into New York City to watch Billy Joel in Madison Square Garden. So I am on a tight timeline, so I do apologize about that. But let's get into how our players did. And this is a combination of game and practice, right? Like just an overall evaluation as to how Senior Bowl week looked for them. Again, Lou, I will give you the honors to begin with the player you named first.
Well,
or whoever you want to begin with.
No, I'm going to go Travis Jones because the last show that we talked, you're like, what's a one player? And I know you talked about him, but I thought Travis Jones was phenomenal. He practiced great, played better. You always had those practice warriors, and then they get in the game, and they're like Houdini. You can't even see them; they just disappear. So he had some great battles during practice against Zion Johnson. He really held his own. I just had a love affair with Zion Johnson, about 5 minutes ago. So you can see pretty much my respect for Travis Jones bringing it to Zion Johnson. Like we say, 6'4", 333, and everything we already discussed. He was walking the interior offensive lineman back into the laps of quarterbacks. We always said perhaps the most disruptive pressure is the pressure up the middle, and this guy will be a problem. Not a first round pick, probably towards the end of second day. Towards the second round, early third round, I would say. He did a great job of displaying great power and leverage. Like we said, he constantly getting under the pads of offensive linemen. And what surprised me the most is how active his hands were. He looked like, it wasn't always, but he did show and display times where he had a plan to his pass rush. It wasn't just straight out, I'm going to try to run through like Marshawn Lynch, run through a motherfucker's mouth. Like it wasn't just like that all the time. So that is why I was really impressed with Travis Jones this past weekend, interior defensive lineman from UConn.
Yeah, I can't say enough as to how well he played in the game and did throughout practice. I'm going to go back to who I began with and who I was most intrigued, coming back to Christian Watson, wide receiver from North Dakota State University. And I know this sounds a little weird coming from like the 49ers, who a 49ers fan, like, why are you eyeing up a wide receiver so much based on like who you have, who's already under contract, et cetera? But there's the real news here is like, we only have 3 under contract, right? So there's plenty of room in the wide receiver room, and you're always looking to upgrade at skills positions. So for me, Christian Watson is more about what he did during the week, not necessarily in the game, because there was limited targets, limited action in the game, like 1 catch for a huge game. But what I loved is the new rules in the Senior Bowl is it's NFL rules. So most people thought he was down. He caught that ball diving, got right back up, and took it for like another 20 plus yards.
Great awareness.
Yeah. So just the intelligence, right? Like, hey, the game is different, even if it's just different for today. Like you have to appreciate those sort of things. But as I mentioned, he dominated in practice, whether it was in the red zone, whether it was one-on-one, team drills, running every route, running them crisp. As I go back and watch, I'm like, this guy played FCS ball. Like, how did no big program pick? I mean, this dude is 6'5", right? Like, you dream of wide receivers the size of him with the skill sets that he has. And maybe he just matured over his years, right? And perfected his craft. But what I love most about him in team drills and in the game, dude blocked his ass off. And twice was responsible for one of his team's touchdowns and another big gain just by his pure threat, just driving his defender completely out of the picture. And didn't even have to block him. Just ran a route and took him right out. And that his entire side of the field was wide open. That's the kind of respect he commanded in this particular game. I mentioned his intent, like 6'5", 210, all those good things, super high production. I think he was being advertised as like a 4th or 5th rounder coming in. This is a day 2 guy. There's no way he gets past day 2 with the way that he performed in this game. Yeah. There's no way, dude. There's literally no way he slips past the 3rd round, especially when you start thinking about compensatory picks and stuff, right? 3rd round gets a little bit longer. No way. It's a crime. And if anybody steals him after that, like A+ draft grade. This guy he's going to be a player in this league. I promise you. All right. Who you got number 2?
Okay. So I have Kobe.
You're going to go to boy Kobe?
Kobe Bryant. I thought he played all right. I thought he played, he's inconsistent. And what I mean by that, he's really handsy. Like he's one of those, like, I'm not comparing to Richard Sherman, but that type of physicality when it comes to defending a wide receiver. So he's sticky in coverage, but he's handsy, and I can see him if he doesn't refine his technique and be able to flip his hips a little better. I can see him getting a lot of holding penalties or pass interference penalties. But he does. But what I really loved about him was this one play. All right, so the NFL, your mad geniuses like Kyle Shanahan and those other outside zone running teams, the reason why they're so effective right now is because cornerbacks, safeties, and linebackers can no longer go below the waist when trying to take out a pulling offensive lineman. Okay? Yes. So you can't do that. It's illegal. It's a penalty now. So you can't just fall down and crash the oncoming offensive lineman, and then hopefully someone else will pick up the running back. Can't do that anymore. So you're going to need corners who can tackle now to help defend. You're going to need those bigger, stronger, more physical cornerbacks. And there was a play. This kid can tackle. I'm going to tell you that. He's not one of those prima donnas that does, Olay type stuff and, side steps. He went head-to-head with Dameon Pierce, Florida running back, who Pierce is a bruiser, man. He's physical. He's big. He's strong. And Pierce lowered his helmet and ran right over Kobe Bryant. But you know what Kobe Bryant just did? He held on to him as much as he could and got him down right away. So that shows me the willingness to tackle. Maybe you play him in the slot closer to the line of scrimmage, and maybe it'll hide some of those deficiencies, those little handsy type of deficiencies he has. But he was up and down, I'm going to say, throughout the game, because he did get burned by the kid from Memphis, I think.
Yeah, had a PI penalty too.
Yeah. So And the kid from Memphis is smaller than him. That's what those smaller receivers always give those bigger corners
hard times, man.
Yeah, because they're so
so
shifty.
quick out of the break.
Well,
Dude.
they're so shifty
yeah.
too.
So I think Kobe's intangibles, like he's kind of like he's got good burst, solid acceleration, little quick twitchy, if you will. He's got good upper body strength. I think the most attractive trait that I have seen from him is his willingness to come up and tackle. You're going to have to do that in the NFL and not play the Olay game. I agree. The tape in the game is just up and down, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because it's not like passing was on display in this game and anybody was getting torched by any means. I mean, I saw more quarterbacks running around than I did actually them throwing the football. So I don't know how much they're challenged or how much these D-backs get an opportunity to display their skills because it just doesn't feel like a natural flow game. So I'd call it like an even wash for me. Nothing good, nothing really bad. So still, I think the jury's still out on Kobe Bryant.
Exactly. Probably solidified him as like a
he's draftable. No, I think he's going to be later. I think he's going to be
fourth. I think would be a nice spot.
Yeah, he's going to have to play some special teams early and often, though.
Yeah. So,
all right. So you went Kobe. I'll go to my guy Nick Zakelj from Fordham because I brought his name up. I mentioned he played left tackle in college. He has that NFL tackle build. I mentioned the 34-inch arms, but he played mainly right guard during this, which I found to be a little odd because he's not one of the shorter arm tackles that you're like, hey, you got to get used to playing guard in the NFL. Like, this guy is a tailor-made tackle in the NFL, whether it's left tackle, right tackle. So I did find that a little confusing, and I guarantee it's probably the first time he slid into guard in a long, long time. And it probably was the easiest way to get him off the field. I'm going to call it what it is. Yeah, 2 false start penalties. Did you hear the joke that it was either Jeremiah or Charles Davis made that they didn't really show those because the producer of the actual Senior Bowl is a Fordham grad, right? So they moved right past it. And
did he have a holding penalty too? I feel like he had a holding penalty.
He might have later in the game. He did not play well.
He did
not play well. But here's the biggest, what is going to be the toughest transition from him. Fordham is an RPO offense. I know their offense very well. This is what they do, right? So like in collegiate RPO type offenses where that's your scheme, like passing lanes tend to be created. You're not often in typical pass blocking sets, right? Like even like in an RPO, like you're taking that yard down the field that you're allowed and just hitting the guy in front of you because you don't know if the quarterback's keeping the ball, handing it off, hitting a quick option wide receiver. So there's a lot of uncertainty. So they're not in pass pro often. What I go back to, and I know this has nothing to do with this week, is I remember when they played Nebraska this year because I actually recorded that game and watched that game because my alma mater was playing a big D1 level of competition for them to be playing, right? I know Nebraska is not the Nebraska you and I grew up watching at those times, but he actually might have played his best game against Nebraska, so top tier talent, but again, in a position of familiarity. He's going to have a tough time being drafted. He definitely will make somebody's practice squad, but you know, my fellow Fordham Ram, Nick, I'll always keep my eye on you, and I'm certainly hoping for the best, but the game was not the game. The whole week was just not favorable for him. He was out of position, in my opinion, and he just wasn't up to the task to make that transition.
Yep.
All right, who you got?
Last Trevor Penning for me.
Okay.
He played really good. I was nervous about his over aggressiveness, and like I said, he's a John Runyon or was it Kyle Turley? Remember him? Those were those over aggressive offensive linemen that they will beat you up, but perhaps. You know, the speed rushers can give them some issues because they're constantly looking to, apply pressure and like Cobra Kai strike first type stuff. So Trevor Penning was solid. I thought he did really good, keeping his feet from, underneath him. And he didn't lean too much. All that being said, he played great during practice, played great during the game, showed mobility. I am still worried about him from a penalty standpoint.
Yeah, playing to the whistle the way that he does is a very fine line. It's a
and you know what? How do you? Because this is not shtick. You watch the game tape. He's doing this.
This is who he is. This is
who he is during practice. So like, how do you coach that out of someone? Like, you don't want to totally coach that out of someone, but like he's like choke slamming or giving rock bottoms to, Tyreek Evans out of Ohio State during practice, then was fought. Like, I don't know. So I just feel like if he can being aggressive, but a controlled aggression, you might have something special there.
Yeah. I listen, I love the mean streak, and you gotta to play level up
It's not just like
competition and
like
be in that.
we said this about last year about Quinn Miners plays with the whistle. No, this is like on another level. Like this is like on steroids type
This
stuff.
is
Like, I hate you. Like,
yeah.
we are not friends. I will not ask you for your jersey after the game to sign with it. I will not take a picture with you. I don't care at all. So this is like personal almost.
It's like Ryan Jensen, dude. You remember how Ryan Jensen got the
Yes.
NFL and how he played, and like they had to coach that out of him in college. Like he was manhandling people well through the whistle, and it's just a mean streak. Like sometimes shit happens to you in your life, and that's the fire that
No, he
brings
looks
you. You know,
he looks kind of like a Fargo type of like or like from Full Metal Jacket type guy. Like a little
Gomer Pyle.
Yeah, he has that Gomer Pyle feel to him.
Yeah. All right, I got one last one, and then we're gonna get into the Super Bowl if you're cool with that.
Yeah, this little Super Bowl game. Yeah.
All right, so I got Jalen Tolbert. I mentioned him earlier. Wide receiver in South Alabama. Lou, I love this kid. I love everything about this kid. He's got good height and length. He can definitely stretch the defense and take the top off. No concern there with his speed. The knock is the lack of nuance in his route running. And I didn't really see a lot of that. I saw improvement like literally every day, a little bit better throughout the week. He's clearly running a different route tree this week than he's had to in the past, given the level of competition. But he's got big play / home run written all over him waiting to happen. I saw a pro comparison to Leonard Hankerson to me. But to me, Lou, this is Will Fuller with better upside. That type of game, right?
So he can catch?
He can catch. Yes, that's where I'll leave it at that. I mean, dude, he made one catch that was called incomplete, but it was bananas on the sideline. Mm-hmm. I think he personally, in my opinion, I think he's a 4th or 5th round pick because his production does come from a smaller school, but I think he's got the tangibles that teams are looking for that second, potentially 3rd wide receiver, because I think you can move him all over the field. But he is a home run waiting to happen. So keep an eye on that name, Jalen Tolbert.
Real quick, I know we're pressed for time, but I did talk about Darian Canard earlier, the offensive tackle, Kentucky. He had a rough game. Speed rushers were giving him all types of fits and problems out there. He looked very stiff, played too high, was slow getting to his set point. It just looked like he was laboring, and he knew it because you can see the frustration. It sucked because he could have got himself into round 1, but I think he lost himself a little money this past weekend.
Yeah, sometimes that happens, right? You either make money, lose money in these all-star games. That's why they're a roll of dice, and you see some people pull out of them because they're like, I'll save my workouts for the combine, pro days, things of that nature, which I do think is foolish for some. All right, Super Bowl. What do we have? 56 at this point, right? We got the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Los Angeles Rams in the house that the San Francisco 49ers built, SoFi Stadium. Just kidding with you. Who you got and why?
All right, so I was tossing and turning. All right. Knee-jerk reaction. I'm like, first of all, what I'm about to say, people, don't take anything what I'm about to say as an intelligent piece because I've been awful during these playoffs. Started off hot 6-0, haven't won a game since. So the opposite will happen for what I'm about to predict. So first and foremost, I was like, that's it. I'm on the Joe Burrow hype train. I'm tired of betting against Burrow. He always gets it done. It just makes sense. Stafford is good against the blitz. When you don't blitz him, he's not as good. You make him hold on to the ball. The offensive line is not as strong. And we just showed how the Cincinnati Bengals pretty much what they did against the Kansas City Chiefs, applying pressure with 3 or 4, then dropping 7 to 8 guys in coverage. So that could bode that. So this is like all like the analytical part of me right now thinking like it's going to be the Bengals. They're going to sit in zone, cause some problems. And Burrow's going to be Burrow. Then a little more lighter fluid for the fire. I found out the Simpsons predicted this game. Yes, the Simpsons. They predicted Bengals 34, Rams 31. So if you're into that type of Simpsons thought process where they predict all the things that come in the future, Weston, you're looking a little confused. Do you not know the Simpsons are time travelers, like the owners and writers of the Simpsons?
Dude,
Yeah,
I haven't watched The Simpsons since I was
neither have I, but this is like a
11
known
years
thing.
old.
The Simpsons have predicted everything from COVID to like
Apparently
Super Bowl
Super Bowl
winners.
56 now.
All kidding aside, you get a chance when you're on the shitter, look that up. Simpsons predictions, it will blow your head away. I think this was like in 2008 they predicted this game. So I'm like, okay, it's definitely the Bengals. But I received a picture a couple days ago from a good friend of mine named Jared Holland. You know Jared. I know Jared. If for our listeners that don't know Jared, this guy is the fucking Maloik. He was all about Bills Mafia going into Kansas City and wiping up the Chiefs. Bills Mafia lost. He was all about the Chiefs beating the Bengals the weekend after. Chiefs Kingdom loss. He sent me a picture of a new Joe Burrow jersey. So not only are the Bengals going to lose to the Rams this weekend, Joe Burrow is going to be on the ending of he's gonna have a season-ending injury. I'm talking about for next year too. This is how much of a negative black cloud this guy is. I have the Rams winning.
Yeah. So funny, Lou. I am rooting for the Bengals. I'm rooting.
As am I.
Yeah, because I desperately want the Rams to face the dreaded Super Bowl hangover, so that they maybe all the things that folklore says happens to teams that lose in the Super Bowl happen to the Rams next year. So there may be an afterthought in our own division because they are the team in the division with the roster that they have right now. Clearly, I do think these teams mirror one another offensively. They both have weapons all over the field, and they have creative play callers. They'll find ways to get the ball in the hands of their weapons. So to me, this game comes down to the defenses. I don't think the Rams are going to be able to take Jamar Chase out of the game because Ramsey's not going to follow him all over the field, right? That just tips your hat too much. He's going to stay on one side of the field, maybe in big spots. He'll find Jamar, but Cincinnati is going to be able to get Jamar involved in this game. But I do think the Rams win this game with their defensive line. The Bengals offensive line has struggled throughout this postseason. 9 sacks against the Titans. The pressure that the Chiefs even got on Burrow, where in that second half he did have to make dazzling plays with his legs to escape, either run for big first downs or buy time.
He had to be magical.
Yeah.
And, like, how much does that magic does he still have in him, you know?
Yeah. I just think Von Miller's playing really well right now. Aaron Donald's probably going to have his way. I don't think Cincinnati is going to. They just haven't ran the ball well, so they're not going to be able to kind of squeeze Donald out and keep him honest. He's going to be coming right up the gut, and I think their D-line gets home often, and I think that's the difference in this game. And I do think that even though I don't want it, I do think the Rams win.
Yeah, and I was joking around in regards to our boy Jared being like the Maloik to the Bengals.
But he just text you?
No. But all kidding aside, for the analytical part of me, Joe Burrow's worst 4 games this year were against like Fangio 2 high safety schemes. It was against Chicago, Cleveland, the Chargers, and the Broncos. He struggled all against those 2 high safety looks. So now the Rams, who do employ that as a very similar scheme, he goes into Los Angeles, have to play in the Rams. It could be a problem for him. And like you said, the interior pressure with Donald and the interior offensive linemen of the Bengals are so bad. So that Donald's going to eat, bro.
Yeah, it's going to be ugly. I think Cincinnati's plenty capable of keeping this game close, but it's going to be a battle to keep it close, and the offense is going to struggle at points. All right, so there you have it.
Hold on, give me a score real quick. I got 34-26 Rams.
I'm thinking back to what numbers I have in some box pools that I'm in. I'm going to say 28-24 Rams.
Okay.
All right. So that wraps us up here. Recap again of the Senior Bowl, little foreshadowing going to the Super Bowl. We may or may not be back next week. We'll see what the future holds in terms of just like, hey, if we're just coming back to kind of recap the Super Bowl. But I do think, Lou, you and I earned at least a week
bye
off
week.
in order to prepare for we're about to embark into with free agency, because you know what a beast that is. And we never want to be late to the game. We don't react to free agency until after the fact. We predict free agency beforehand. So I do think we earn some time. So we'll figure out a way to work that in, so we can prove to our families that we love them. But always a pleasure, man. Hope you enjoy the evening, and I look forward to getting back at it next week before a little hiatus.
All right, bro.